Hi, I'm Sam, your resident fantasy reader,
And I'm Morgan, your romance reader, and we welcome you to Just One More Page.
where it's never just one more page. I get it now.
You get what now?
I understand why you were so mad at the movie.
Okay, because I was going to ask you if you saw the movie.
Well, I've watched the movie when it came out. I just had never
Yeah.
read the books.
Now you understand my frustration, okay?
I was like, did they like cut out 75% of the book, threw away about half the characters' backstories, completely changed the personality of a bunch of them? I was like, I get it now. I get why the Percy Jackson fans were pissed off at the movie, because I was like, it wasn't a bad movie. Like, it wasn't the greatest movie in the world, but it wasn't a bad movie. I enjoyed it. I actually prefer the first one versus the second one.
So the second movie has things that happened in the fourth book that happened in the second. It's like the movie producer looked at the book and said, yep, this is not the one for me, and threw it out. And it's like, I'm just gonna use the name. Like, and what's sad enough is that as a writer, or if you're a writer, a lot of times, from what I understand, from what I looked up, I could be completely wrong because I looked this up maybe a year ago. A lot of times when you sign to like a big publishing company, you sign a piece of paper that will say like, I give away basically my rights if this ever gets turned into like a movie or a TV show. It's very, very rare that the creator of the book / movie gets any sort of control over the like whatever it is. And like, except I will say, like, you know, you'll notice though when when writers are involved in certain franchises that they wrote, the shows do a lot better because the fans are happier. They're sticking more towards what it is. But in this case, like, Rick Riordon was like, hey, I don't think you're doing this right. You made the characters too old. You also add this in. And the directors were like, yeah, we're not going to listen to you. We know better.
With movies that age their characters up, unless it's like a Harry Potter situation where like the age of the character matters because like they couldn't start school till they were 11, so clearly the character has to start out at 11 years old. I feel like aging characters up in movies a lot of times is a smart idea because then you can have older actors, because a lot of times what they're running into is child labor laws. And so it's easier to cast 18-year-olds as like 16-year-olds because A, they're going to be able to memorize the lines, and B, they're not having to work around child labor laws in school and everything. So I understand why sometimes they age the characters up, but they just like took this entire book and went Greek mythology. Okay, we can run with that, and like picked like highlights of the book and then just ran with it. They just like skipped over a whole bunch of crap. And I was like, wow, they really didn't do any research on this book whatsoever, because there were like parts where I was like, I wish that was there and I wish that was there, and they just like didn't even care about this piece. I was like, this is insane.
Yeah. Well, another thing is that they basically told Rick Riordon that they felt like the character should be older because the first book seems more mature. I don't agree with that at all. My littlest niece, who is like, I think she's 10 now, she is the most sassy kid I've ever met. So like, no, absolutely not. But before we talk about the book, Sam, I want to tell you a funny story before we get into this book. I want to tell you about something that happened this weekend to me. So last weekend, long story short, my sister and my brother-in-law both work for the same company. They were having a holiday event at this hotel. We got to spend 2 nights there. Very, very, very nice hotel, Sam. I walked in being like, ooh, this is like, I'm about to find my sugar daddy kind of hotel, okay? So my sister, you know, we go out. My little sister, she had a little bit too much to drink. You know, it happens. She's over the age to drink. She's legal. There's nothing wrong with having a fun time. Well, she had a lot of fun times now. So she ends up going to, we're upstairs at this nice bar. It's like a Christmas wonderland. It's beautiful. There's so many Christmas trees. There's so many Christmas decorations. It's absolutely gorgeous. And my sister goes to take photos because there is this fireplace. And next to the fireplace is like this stone reindeer. So she takes photos. First photo she takes, she's hilarious. She's like rolling on the ground, doing like, you know, classic cringy photo poses. And then at one point, she went to go take a picture with me and my brother in law, and she ends up literally falling because she went to go run and jump, and she ran and slid and almost ran into the fireplace. It was hilarious. So then she wants to take another photo with it's another guy that she works with. And she goes over to
Mhm.
take a photo with him, and she runs over, gets down, goes to pose, throws up her legs for some reason, kicks the stone reindeer. It goes flying and shatters everywhere.
Oh no.
It's this huge, huge stone reindeer. Shatters everywhere, right? And then the worst part was when she sat up and she's like, oh, she tried fixing it, and she was putting the leg upside down, trying to fit it back together. Like
Oh
and I
no.
was like, no. Like I literally was like, sister, come here, please. I was like, I'm tired. Let's go back to our room. But yeah, I was cracking up so bad. And then the next day, she was picking up ornaments off a tree, and she broke one of the ornaments in the hotel again. So I was like, this is probably why my family is never allowed to go anywhere. It's because we are clumsy as hell. So I want to send you the picture of her next to the reindeer just so you can see.
Jesus.
You see that reindeer?
Yeah.
Yeah, she dropped that. She said
Run
the
away. I wouldn't even try to fix it. I would have just like slowly walked away.
this bar was very, very small. I like it was just hilarious if anything, and I thought I would share the small tidbit of what happened over my weekend, which was it was a fun weekend. We went to this a really amazing Greek place, had some amazing scallops. They had cheese that they set on fire, and when they set the cheese on fire, you had to scream "Opa!" It was quite fun and magical. But yeah, but I'm glad. Did you actually like this book, Sam?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean, it was like it was weird because I already knew the story, but I didn't know the story. Does that make sense? Like I had watched
Yeah.
the movie, so I had like a basic idea of what I was going into. So some of the twists that were in there that were supposed to be like, "Oh my god, I didn't see
Mhm.
that coming." Such a shocker. I was like, I knew this was coming. Actually,
Yeah.
there was one twist I was like, "Where is it? Where did it happen?" And it didn't happen till like the last chapter, and it wasn't even the
Yeah.
same as in the dang movie. I was like, "Come on,
No.
man." I was like, "Oh, there it is." I knew
Yeah.
the evil camper was the evil camper. I just
Yeah.
didn't how it played out in the movie versus how it played out in the book was completely different.
Yeah. I'm glad you did enjoy it a ton. I mean, it's definitely a book I hold dear to my heart. But if you guys are probably wondering like what book are you guys talking about? I mean, you probably can read the title of this podcast. But we are going to be reading or talking about, I'm sorry, Percy Jackson and the Olympian series, in the first book, which is called The Lightning Thief. And if you're wondering why we're reading a book that came out in 2005, it's because one, if you can't tell by me talking to Sam about this earlier, I absolutely adore this book. This book's absolutely one of my favorite book series. And two, Disney is actually making this novel into a TV show that's going to be airing on Disney Plus on on December 20th. And also, like I said before, with Sam, we're not going to talk about the two other movies. Those deserve a place in hell. I will never forgive the director or the writer. If I ever met the writer that wrote the books, I mean, I'm sorry, the movies, and then he was like, I wrote the movies, I'd be like, immediately throat punch. Seriously. Because I absolutely hate you. But if you're unfamiliar with the Percy Jackson series, let me explain what the first book's about. So, this is a middle grade book that follows Percy Jackson, a 12-year-old boy who finds out that his father is Poseidon, the god of the sea. After his mother and him are attacked by a monster, Percy is sent to Camp Half Blood, a camp where other children with god parents are sent to live or stay for the summer with. That way, they are protected from the monsters that are always out to get them. But when Percy arrives, he is accused of stealing Zeus's lightning bolt and sent on his quest across the United States to find the stolen lightning bolt before the gods go into a full-on war. And Sam, you kind of explained that you like your thoughts on this book, but do you have any other like what did you rate it? Did it surprise you on how good it was, or were you not expecting it to be as good as you thought it was going to be?
So I I mean, I went into it with not really super high expectations just because it is a middle grade book. And I actually, I mean, the writing holds up for being written in 2005. I thought it was going to be just juvenile. Like the writing was like not necessarily that the writer is a juvenile writer, but that like it was written for a more juvenile audience. And it was actually like as an adult enjoyable. I would give it 4.5 stars. I mean overall, I mean it's a good book. I mean it still holds the test of time. Clearly, I mean if they're still making a TV show out of this, which hopefully this doesn't end up like what the Mortal Instruments ended up like, where they did a movie, the movie flopped, so they tried to do a TV show, didn't end up very well. So
Wait, they did a
hopefully,
TV
fingers
show?
crossed. Oh yeah, they did a TV show. The CW picked it up. Hopefully, the TV show does more justice to the book than that movie did to it. I guess going into it, I was like, well, now I'm going to finally find out why Morgan was so mad at this dang movie.
Yeah.
And then I didn't even make it out of like chapter 3, and I was like, I get it now. I
Yeah.
get it. Like
Yeah.
they just skirted over all of these pieces and just like remolded the plot points, and that was all they used.
Yeah.
They just like grazed over a lot of stuff that I really wish was in the movie because I think it would have been better. And even then, like I get that the movie was geared toward like young adults and the younger crowd, but I really wish that they could have lengthened the movie to like a 2.5 hour movie and like really done a good job with it. Even if they,
Mhm.
I mean, you're not gonna be able to ever fit everything that's in a book into the movie. Like it's just never gonna happen. It's gonna be a 20-hour long movie. But there was a lot of pieces that they could have added into it that or adjustments they could have made to make it better than what it was.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I definitely think they made, like, a small part of this something that happened in the book and made it into, like, a big plot point that never happened, which was quite frustrating. So, the last time I actually read Percy Jackson series or Percy Jackson, like, the first book was, I think, last year, maybe a year before that, because I think I
Mm.
do try to read them, like, at least Harry Potter or Percy Jackson every year, but I tend to forget how middle school grade this book is. Like the last book I read, I'll be honest with you, Sam, was very, very spicy. It's like a spicy romance book. So going from that to like middle school like grade book was a bit of a whiplash for me, but regardless, I really adore this book and the other book series, and they will always hold a special part of my heart. And I really do love Rick Riordon's sense of humor and how sassy Percy is. I also think that if you didn't see the movie, then the twist at the end of the novel would have been a bigger surprise because would you have guessed that if you had not seen the movie?
I think I would have figured it out closer to the end before I got to the final chapter.
Yeah.
Um, but it probably would have taken me a little while longer to figure it out versus when they first introduced the character. I was like, oh, you're the bad guy. Don't trust him.
It's like, "It's you!
It's you.
I know it's you!" Okay, but I you know what, here's the thing, Sam, I absolutely adore these books. I think that these books kinda give me the same feeling that I get when I'm reading Harry Potter, even though I hate JK Rowling. I just I just wanna live, in those worlds, except I'm pretty sure if I was in the Percy Jackson universe, I'd probably be killed right away, so maybe don't live there. But I guess, Sam, do you have anything else you'd like to add to our non-spoiler section?
No, I don't. I think we're good. I think I've hit all my points.
Okay, so if you guys don't want to be spoiled, which I mean, I'm hoping you've read this book series because if not, who are you? Go read it. It's absolutely fantastic. I mean, seriously, go read it before you watch the TV show, and do not watch those movies. They're god awful. But anyways, if you guys don't want to be spoiled, want to check out our last episode. Last episode, we read Gwen and are not in love, which was such a fun like cozy fantasy that we read. And if you don't want to listen to that one, we also released our 100th episode, which that's absolutely crazy. Maybe we already hit our 100th episode, but go check out those episodes and then read Percy Jackson. Come back. If not, you don't want to be, or if you've already read the book and you want to be, or you want to be spoiled, then stay on. So yeah, Sam, what would you like to talk about first?
I think it's hard. I mean, I know you want to avoid talking about the movie versus the book, but I think it's hard not to. Grazing over the fact that Grover's like in his mid 20s and grazing over the fact that Mr. D in the movie was like this like nice, gentle, caring person. And he was a dick in the book. He was an ass
Yeah,
the whole
he
time.
was like,
And
there's a scene
and
that I
like
absolutely, I'm sorry. There's a scene I absolutely love where Percy's like in school struggling and Mr. D is like, I expect you to do better. Not like you're doing your best you can. And he's like, no. I expect you to do better. You can do better than this. Like, damn. But finish what you're
Right.
saying.
In the movie, you get set up to understand like his mom really loves him, but her husband's a total asshat because and we get to learn why she married him and stayed with him. But I really wish that they'd gone on the camping trip in the movie
Mhm.
of like showing him being like, well, this money's coming out of your clothing budget, and her just being like, we're gonna go, like just don't worry about it, and just them having that little bit of quality time together instead of them just being like, we gotta go now, there's a minotaur coming after you.
Yeah.
I was like, ugh. And then the fates, who I figured out they were the fates before they
Yeah.
told us who they were, but that's just because I think if you know basic Greek mythology, the three ladies with any kind of string is usually the fates. I wish we'd seen them, and just there was
So
just so much I just wish we saw.
I was gonna ask you a question about the fates.
Okay.
So if you haven't read the books and you just want to be spoiled, there's a part in which Percy gets onto the bus. He sees three women sitting together, cutting a thread that Grover can't see. So Grover doesn't seem like Grover can see them. Whose thread do you think they were cutting?
It could have been anybody's. Honestly, like they could have been just cutting the thread of somebody who was getting on that bus.
Or why don't you
Um,
think Grover could see them?
I don't. I mean, he might not be able to see them. The same reason why he can't drink the what is it called,
Nectar?
the nectar
Hmm.
is like, yeah, he's this mystical creature, but he's not a demigod or a god, and so he's not privy to what the demigods and gods can see.
Hmm.
So he probably can't. I mean, he can see the world, but probably can't see certain things
Yeah.
because when he said that, like only the demigods and gods can drink the nectar, otherwise it's gonna like basically kill you.
Hmm.
It's probably the same reason why he can't see the string that the fates are cutting.
So another thing I was going to ask you about, because a lot of people like to compare this book to Harry Potter. Do you
Yeah.
agree?
I wouldn't compare it to Harry Potter. It's a completely different. I mean, I get the age range of it, but it's not the same thing. I can understand why people would parallel them to each other, but they're not the same story. They're. I feel like this is a kind of book that required a lot of research on Rick Riordan's part because he had to get the Greek gods correct. Like he had to get the connections between them and which gods hated each other and why, and there had to be a lot of like deep knowledge into it, even though it's a middle grade book, because there are people like us who read it and we know a lot of the Greek mythology and the Greek lore. So I don't feel like it's very fair to compare the world of Harry Potter, where it's just straight up the imagination of she who must not
Hmm.
be named, versus creating this world that already has a really solid foundation to it and then just building this like new lore into it. Does that make sense? Um,
Yeah.
so I don't feel like it's fair to compare the two.
Well, I think the only reason why people like to compare it is because of the friendship. And
Mm,
yes, there is two boys, one girl. And yes, Annabeth is smart, but she isn't really like book smart. I don't think, I mean, Annabeth is smart in her own ways, but you don't see her like studying all the time. You don't see her like, and she's not like a straight edge kind of like Hermione was. And
yeah.
Grover isn't like as complex as a character as Ron was. Like, and I absolutely adore Ron. There's no
Mm,
Ron hatred here. I absolutely love Ron. And Harry isn't Percy. And yes, they're both sassy and they both backtalk, but they both have great friendships. And like the thing is that they're both very different. Like, Percy isn't his both his parents isn't dead. He isn't like, he isn't woe is me kind of thing. Percy does take on a lot of responsibility. Which if you ever read the rest of the books, you will definitely see he definitely holds himself higher than a lot of people, not in a bad way, but he just knows that he has a lot riding on his shoulders.
hmm
Um, and another thing though is Annabeth and Percy has such a rough start in the beginning of the novel, especially because Annabeth was holding on to her mother's grudge against Poseidon, and then towards the end of the novel, of course, she realizes that Percy is not Poseidon. Do you think you would have had the same kind of feelings if your like family member or if your parents had issue with another parent? Would you hate their
s-
kids?
so no. Not not necessarily. I mean, in that. I mean, I can give you a real life situation. So,
Oh.
not necessarily like hating on someone else's kids because of their parent, because my parents didn't get along with them. But there's a little bit of a family feud going on right now, amongst my mother and another family member.
Mhm.
And when we went up to visit, I was like, I don't care. That is your fight. And I'm a big believer of like, unless they did something legitimately terrible to my parent, like directly,
Mhm.
and nobody did anything directly terrible. It's just a who can puff their chest out more kind of situation. I'm not getting in the middle of the fight. That is
Yeah.
your issue, not my issue. Like, I have a
Yeah.
different relationship with that person than my mother has, and you guys can fight it amongst yourself until you finally figure out that you're both just being bullheaded. I'm going to go over here and do what I want to do, and that'll be that. And I've said my piece with both of them, and they're both like, okay, and that's kind of where it's at. I feel like
Yeah.
it would have to be like an egregious act against my mother for me to be like, shun you and your cow and your whole family before I like, I'm never talking to you ever again. So it all
Yeah.
depends. But this whole like, her mother was Athena, right?
Yep. Mhm.
My mom is Athena, so therefore I hate you because your dad is Poseidon. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
No. But if you notice that, the gods in Greek mythology, they're all very petty, so I guess their children have to be
They
petty
really
too.
are.
Well, talking about children, so do you know how this book got started? Why this book got written?
No.
So Rick Riordon, his son, I think his son is name. I forgot what his son's name is, but his son struggled with ADHD and dyslexia, which
Uh
is
huh.
actually something that the characters in Camp Half Blood also struggle with. And his son did not like reading at all. And the one thing that he really did like was the fact that his dad would tell him Greek mythology stories. And so he thought it was a good idea to kind of make up a whole story about these Greek god or Greek children who also have the same disabilities that he is. Wait, hold on. Is dyslexia or ADHD and I can't speak right now.
Dyslexia.
Dyslexia, is that a disability? Right? Is that?
So ADHD it's considered, it's not really, it's not a full disability. It kind of depends. It's kind of on the
No.
spectrum for the most
Mhm.
part.
Mhm.
And then dyslexia is a
Learning.
it's, yeah, it's a
It's a
learning
learning
disability.
disability because I have a
Yeah,
I have a little bit of a speech impediment, which is could be considered a disability too, a little bit. And
yeah,
people I think people view disability as a negative thing. I'm not viewing that
yeah,
as a negative thing at all. I think it's really cute that he wrote this book
yeah.
for his dad or for his son. It's kind of like a a love letter to his son about wanting him to read, wanting him to fall in love with reading. I think is super cute. And Percy and other campers also struggle with those because it's explained that they're built to read Greek, and they're also built to like fight. And the ADHD kind of helps them with fighting, which I'm like, oh, that's good because I'll have a little bit of ADHD in me, so I guess I could be a good fighter. I can't have blood. So the one thing I also was going to talk to you about though is in the beginning of the book, and since you have not read the rest of the books, you probably don't know this. There is lots of processes in
Yeah.
every single book. In every single book, he's given one, but this is the one that he's given, and I want to ask you if you think everything in this came true, and did you have an idea of where this was going to go? So the thing is, you shall go west and face the god who has turned. You shall find what was stolen and see it safely returned. You shall be betrayed by one you call a friend, and you shall fail to save the what matters the most in the end.
So I feel like this book was written for it to fit neatly into that
Mhm.
prophecy, but I don't feel like the prophecy is completed because Percy in this book kind of justifies the whole prophecy, but then is like, well, maybe it's not. He kind of foreshadows himself
Mhm.
to say that like maybe it's not the end, and that there might be more quests to come. I mean, clearly there's a whole book series, so there are more quests to come. So I don't feel like it's completed. I feel like it'll be completed if I read the whole series. I feel like it would be the completion of the prophecy.
So there's this one's completed, but in every book there's a new one, and then there's a
Yeah.
big one in the end. The last line, and you shall fail to save what matters to you most in the end. A lot of people think that this one means to talk about his mom, because
Mhm.
he didn't really save his mom. His mom just kind of got returned to him. But I kind of think it's about Luke because he failed to save his friend, kind of thing. He failed to like I don't know. I kind of get a feeling like he failed to see that who he really was, and failed to kind of make him come over to the good side.
See, I feel like it was talking about Percy getting bitten by that scorpion. Like
Oh yeah.
in the end, he failed to like save himself, and he had to be saved by everybody else.
Hmm.
So I feel
Yeah.
like it's him.
Yeah.
He failed to save himself.
Hmm. Yeah, I never really thought about it in that way. I kind of thought about it as Luke, kind of the whole Luke situation,
Yeah,
which do you like do you kind of understand now reading the books why Luke did what he did or
not
no?
really. Honestly, I feel
Okay.
like Luke is a
I
punk.
I really want to spoil some stuff to you,
I'm
Sam.
not going to finish this series. Spoil away.
Okay. Okay, if you guys have want to finish the series, please skip ahead a little bit, and I don't know when to skip ahead. But okay, so basically with the whole thing with Luke is that do you know the mummy upstairs? Like the one who gave him
Yeah.
the whole prophecy? Yeah, that's Luke's mom.
Oh, okay.
So Luke's mom was in love with Hermes, and they thought that she was, or she thought basically she was the Delphi. She thought that she could be her. And I forgot exactly what happened, but basically she got cursed that she was going to stay up there. And because that happened, and she basically like lost her mind, kind of thing.
Okay.
Like completely lost her mind. And so he really resented Hermes because he felt like it was Hermes' fault that he lost his mom because of Hermes.
Oh, okay.
And that Hermes never showed him the love that he like, that he always wanted. So that's why he was like, yeah, screw you. I'm gonna go help get rid of you because you
Yeah.
basically killed my mom. But like yeah, so that kind of explains more about what it is. So if
Okay.
yeah.
So that
So
makes more sense now.
yeah, it does make more
Because in
sense, I
this book,
guess.
he kind of just seems like a punk who's just like, I'm just gonna do this because I can, kind of thing, and just to prove that I'm a badass. I feel like if I continue, because honestly, I have no, like I enjoyed the book, but I have no intent of continuing with this series.
Yeah.
Um, so that's kind of a good piece of knowledge to have. I also appreciate too the book explaining what happens when like the female goddesses have, obviously female goddess, whatever, the goddesses when they have their children, because I was like, how do they end up with their fathers? And she's like, yeah, they just send them down with a golden carrot into like a golden bassinet and hand them
Yeah,
off to the
they're like
parents. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense because it was never explained.
no,
I
it's
was like, what
never.
happens when the goddesses are pregnant? Because clearly they can't just like disappear into the
No.
ether.
No, they can't. But I honestly think it's so interesting how you get more information in the book, and it's more like explain about how they come to be, and also like I think it's really also interesting that Annabeth's mom, who is Athena, basically they didn't even sleep together, Sam, if you caught that. They didn't sleep together. They just I don't know, did something smart together. They like talked about whatever smart theories, whatever, and then basically they had brain sex. I don't know how to explain it. And
Like,
that's
oops,
how
I'm
she got
pregnant now.
yeah, that's what she's like. She's like, "Ooh, you're intelligent." Well, I'm pregnant. Like, oh,
Yeah,
okay. But there's also a lot of different types of monsters in this book. So the first one we have is Mrs. Dodds, which turned into a furry from the underworld. There's a minotaur that attacks Percy, Grover, and his mom all the way to Camp Half-Blood. There's the hellhound that attacked him inside of the camp. Medusa, who tried to turn him into a statue for her business. I can't say this. I'm really sorry. Enchil- it sounds like it looks like enchilada, but I know it's not. And Chilna and Chimera, who attacked Percy on the gateway.
yeah.
Portus, a monster that sells beds and ends up stretching people or cutting off their limbs so that way they'll fit in the bed perfectly. The
That was such a
Slippery
weird scene.
It was what? It seriously, wasn't it? You're like, "Wait, what's happening
I'm like,
here?"
"What am I listening to?" And then when Percy was like, "Well, is this bed comfortable? Don't you think you should get into this bed?" I'm like, "What is going on, man?"
Right? And then the last one is Sabrius, the three-headed dog that guarded the underworld. Do you think that Rick Riordan did a good job at taking on all these myths and making them more modern, or do you have like a favorite monster of these stories, or a monster or a story they would like to see play out in this book?
I was hoping to see Persephone. Honestly, I love Persephone. I love the Hades Persephone like
Well,
story. It's very interesting. I love I don't know what it is about Hades and the underworld, but I was just like I always have like loved that story, which I think is why I like the Olympus story from Webtoon that's now being published and everything.
mhm.
And I also like too that I had like much larger background in Greek mythology than I thought I did because I was like, oh, I know this story and I understand this. And then of course like Cerberus, who I love Cerberus. So I feel like Riordan did a really good job of taking a lot of because Greek mythology is very deep and it if you wanted to read all the stories you would be sitting there for hours reading them. So I feel like he did a really good job of taking them and shrinking them down to a level that a middle grade reader could understand. It was palatable for them because if you actually read some of these stories, they're kind of yeah, like they give you the heebie-jeebies. So I think he did a good job for the audience that he was writing for.
Yeah. I also really like the fact that in this book that we get a little bit of each monster, which is
Mhm.
super interesting. But I will say that um, as you read the books, it kind of follows the same formula, which I don't really like about the Percy Jackson series, is that it does follow the same formula over every single book and every single spinoff where they get a prophecy, they go, they fight a couple monsters, whatever. But it's such a great series, regardless. Like this book holds a special part of my like heart. Um,
Mhm.
but I will ask you, the lotus eating that part where they went to the hotel.
Yeah.
Um, so you may not notice, but the Lotus Hotel was inspired by Homer's epic poem in the Odyssey that
Yeah.
basically talks about how a storm blew a ship off course and they arrive on this land of lotus eaters. Even though the island seems to be mostly hostile or unhostile, when the men eat these lotus plants, it causes them to lose their memories and their desire to return home. Do you think the book did a good job at portraying this? Or do you also think that you'd be able to snap out of this hotel, or would you just stay for a good time?
So I feel like I knew where they were because of the movie. So I was just wondering how it was going to differentiate from the book. I guess I mean it makes sense that why the kids didn't want to leave because it was like a kid's paradise. They never had to worry about food and they didn't have to like they constantly had video games and I feel like it's a good and it's a good analogy for like what's happening today with like the kids who are just like sucked
Yeah.
into the video games and like have no idea that like hours and hours have passed. I mean, granted, we that books have to do that to us too.
I was
It's
gonna
like the
say,
flow. Um, but I mean, again, like I said, Riordan does a good job of taking not so palatable Greek mythology stories and changing them so that way, like it's understandable to kids. So that way, like
yeah,
later on in life, if people had read, like if like you, me, like younger generations read these stories, and then they go into high school and they start a Greek mythology class, it's like they kind of already understand the idea of the story because it was presented to them in a way that was more easily digestible because I've read the Odyssey. I had to read it for an English class and that's not an
mhm,
easy read. Rick Riordan and Percy Jackson's a really easy read, so it's like okay, I remember reading this as a kid and now I'm reading the what it was based off of and now I understand it a little bit better.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So my other question to you is, now Percy finds out in the beginning book because he gets sent to go live in Hermes' cabin. He finds out that not all kids are claimed by their parents. Do you think? How do you think you would feel if you were in his place? And would you think your parent was? Would you rather think your parent was dead, or would you not care about them not claiming you?
I mean, you don't know unless you're in the situation. I mean, as a
Yeah.
kid, I'd probably be upset that like my parent isn't claiming me, but
Yeah.
I don't know if it would be better if they were dead or better if they weren't claiming them. I mean, these kids obviously know that their parents are gods and that they're alive.
Yeah.
So
But I
it
think it's
kind of
worse.
sucks that like they aren't being claimed. Um, it would be better. I mean, I feel like if those kids didn't end up in Camp Half Blood, it'd be better just to think that their parents are dead, but because they're there, I mean, their parents are gods. They're clearly still there.
Yeah. I agree. I think that'd be really difficult to kind of like wrap your head around that your parent never wants to claim you. And I think like there is a war that happens in this book. And I think that a lot of kids that side on Luke's side are kids that aren't claimed, are kids that feel
Mhm.
like their parents don't care about them. So they're like, you know what? Why not just get rid of all the Greek gods, you know? Um,
Yeah.
so did you have any favorite scenes that happened in this book?
I like the waterbed scene. I don't know why. I think it's just
Did
so
you?
interesting. I did. I just thought it was like weird and funny, and like just Percy just being like, because Annabeth and Grover are like, "What the heck are you doing, friend? He's about to stretch us to like being 6 feet tall." And Percy's just like, "So, my guy, is this comfortable? Does this really not create waves? Oh my gosh, I cannot believe that." And like, he's just chill and schmoozing the guy. And
Yeah.
Annabeth and Grover are in the back going, "What the fuck? Like, dude, we're stuck in these beds. He's gonna stretch us and kill us." And then Percy's just like, "So what do you do with the people who aren't 6 feet tall?" And they're like, 6'2". "Oh, I just chop their feet off." I'm like, I don't know what the heck I'm listening to right now, but I'm like, I like piqued my interest weirdly
Yes.
enough.
I,
So I like, I don't know why I love that scene, and I wish that was in the book or in the
right?
movie.
I absolutely love the scene in which they're in the truck with all the animals
Mm.
and like he like lets them go. That as a vegetarian, I appreciate that. I love that scene. I also like the scene where he jumps off the Golden State, not the Golden State Bridge, the whatever he was. He jumped off into the water and he's like, "Oh wait, whatever I touch is dry." That's so cool. Like those were my definitely favorite parts. Oh, I was also going to ask you, did you have a favorite character?
Not specifically. I mean, Percy was fun to read and everything, but
Yeah.
I don't really have like a specific favorite character. I found it, what's her face, Annabeth, kind of annoying a little
Did
bit.
you? Yeah,
Yeah, she's a little annoying, and Grover's just kind of there, like pity me because I
yeah.
screwed up my first mission, and then Zeus's daughter got turned into a pine tree, and so he's just kind of like
Talia.
poor as me,
Mm.
and so like Percy's just like the personality of most of this book, which is fantastic. But nah, I
Yeah.
mean, I guess Percy's my favorite character. I don't really know.
Mr. D's my favorite.
Mr. D.
Yeah, Mr. D. Dionysus, the
Yeah,
god of
no,
wine.
I know what you're talking about. He's just a dick.
And that's why I love him because he's so funny. I absolutely adore him because he's like I don't even like he's like yeah I don't care the fact that your dad is Poseidon. He's like I'm gonna keep calling you by the wrong name, and then like I just adore him. And also like I also think that I have a little bit. Uh, it's hard because I absolutely love him in the other books too. And I'm not gonna say my other favorite character because it definitely will spoil some stuff away. But I definitely love this book series. Now, the last thing, the most important question, Sam, I'm going to ask you is
Oh gosh, I
who
don't know which Greek god
you
house
don't
I
know?
belong in. I don't. You've asked me this before.
Did I? But who, you
Yeah,
don't.
years ago. Years ago, you've asked me because you were like, "Who do you think you belong in?" And I was like, "I don't know," because I've never read the books. I don't know.
Well,
I've
I was
never
going to ask you
known. I
now
have no
that you've read the
idea.
books. You don't
No,
know?
I've no idea.
I feel like I would probably be who would I be? I would either be in I would like I would either say Hades or Zeus because because I have anger or Aries. No, probably Aries because I do have anger issues. or
Jesus.
or I know Artemis does not have does not have children, but I feel like I'd be either Artemis too, because I just love her whole storyline. But
Mhm.
yeah. So, any other thoughts you'd like to give, Sam?
No, that pretty much. I think I pretty much said my piece. I enjoyed this.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I'm glad I finally have actually read it because I know you've been gushing about these since we were like middle school, and
Mhm.
I don't know why I never read them. I just never got to it. I don't know. I just think it was like one of those things of I know I should read them, but I've never gotten to it. And then like as time went on and Riordan's like collection got bigger and bigger, I was like, never
Oh,
mind. That looks very
yeah.
overwhelming. I'm not going
No.
to try this.
He literally has, so the Percy Jackson series has 5 or 4 books, now getting another book, so there's gonna be 5 books, right? The Percy 1, 2,
Hmm.
3, 4, maybe no. Is there 5 books? I mean, I don't know. They're getting another book, and then there's the Lost Hero series, and the Lost Hero
Yeah.
series follow other Greek gods, but Harry or not Harry, I'm sorry, ooh, wrong series. Percy Jackson's in those. And then they have, I think, another spin-off.
Yeah, they have
This
like
is a
Egyptian gods
oh, so
in like one
Egyptian
series.
well, so Egyptian gods are just that's a whole another series.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Um,
It's like he's got like other spin-offs to
yeah, he has a
this
lot.
world.
It's very, very hard to kind of like get into it. But I definitely recommend anyone to read these books because you'll fall in love with them, especially if you love Greek mythology. And I definitely will say, definitely check out the show. I've been getting a lot of ads on TikTok of like small clips of the Percy Jackson series, and it looks so far really, really good. And I don't care what any other person says about the way that these characters look because someone got mad that they casted Annabeth as a the girl who's playing her is black, and grow up, really grow up. Who cares? So that's all I'm gonna say is
Yeah.
check out the show. It's gonna be fantastic. I'm really excited to watch it. It's coming out the 20th, so literally it'll be like a couple days after we post this episode. But yeah, so anything else, Sam?
No, that's
Okay.
all I got.
Okay, so if you guys love this episode, would like to support us, please feel free to rate us on Spotify, as it does help our push our podcast out there. Also, remember to follow us on anywhere you can find a podcast, and Sam will tell you about the rest of our socials.
So if you think we are hilarious, which fun fact, my friends, we are. We do have a TikTok. It is just more page podcast. And for all the stories and anything else we decide to post, we are just more page official on both Instagram and Threads. So go ahead and check us out. Come stalk us. Come slide into our DMs. We love talking to y'all. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will talk to you all next Sunday.
Okay, don't watch
All
those
right.
movies. You better watch that TV show. Okay, bye.
All right. Bye.